I'm so excited for this furniture makeover. We found this piece on the side of the road and it didn't even have a top to it. So you'll notice that the top is all brand new. We just went to Home Depot, grabbed a couple of really large slats of wood, screwed them on top. The bottom is looking rustic and rough. So what we're gonna do is paint that up, give it some nice distressing. But on here, at the top, I wanna show you how to do a paint wash. It's a very common question that we get all the time is what is a paint wash and how do you do it? So join me, follow along step by step as we make this table beautiful. A paint wash is so simple and easy. All it is you mix your paint with water, you put it on your piece and you wipe it back. So it's like a really thin, transparent paint that looks like a wash effect. Very simple to do. So I have my water here and I'm gonna go ahead and add paint. Now I do about 1 part water to 1 part paint, and you really don't need too much for the tabletop. So I'm going to pour the paint right into the container, and I'm using this container so that I can dip my brush into it. I'm going to use a really wide angle brush here. This is usually used for walls or really large surfaces like tabletops to get a smooth finish end to end. The color that I'm using is called Birch in our Alchemy line. It's a beautiful off-white color, and I'm just going to mix the water and the paint together. Super simple. Again, about a 1 part paint to 1 part water. It's all adjustable. I definitely recommend that you test it and make sure that you like the effect, but you have to test on the surface that you're working on. This already has a wash on it, but it's essentially bare porous wood. Paint washes work really, really well on porous wood surfaces. So if you've got a table that already has a finish on it, you'll want to sand that off to get it down to the original wood and then go ahead and put your wash over top. You can do paint washes on top of paint colors as well. That still works too. So that's pretty well mixed. It's always a good idea to work on your piece sort of in sections. So for this table, it's really easy because I have planks. So I can go one end to the other, one at a time. Because think of a wash as kind of like a stain. So if you were to stain sort of like halfway into this board, you're gonna see that start and stop mark. So if you can do one at a time entirely, that's sort of where you wanna be. Makes it a little easier for you. Now you can see how thin that is. It's essentially like water with paint mixed in. So we'll start here at the front. Okay. You can be fairly generous with it because you actually don't want it to dry. You want to get a lot on and have it still be wet for a little bit so that you can wipe it back. This wide brush makes it a lot easier. It's a 4-inch wide brush. You get a lot of coverage pretty quickly with it. I really like that. So that's on there. I'm going to come to the front and get the front of it. It looks messy, that's okay. It doesn't need to be perfect because we're just about to wipe it back. So you're going to want to grab a rag, and then you're just going to pull from end to end. So you're essentially removing the paint. Now the tip with this is you want to have sort of even absorption and pressure from end to end, or else you're going to leave more paint behind in some areas than others. So you may need to have a couple rags around, turn it over as you're working with it. But you see a beautiful wood grain. It's absolutely stunning. Definitely going to need more rags. Okay. I just finished my whitewash top, super happy with it. It looks fabulous. I'm gonna throw a top coat on it, but I'm gonna let it dry for at least 12 hours because with all that water in there, it's gonna take a while to evaporate. So I'm gonna wait until tomorrow to do that. But for now, we're gonna start tackling the legs. I'm gonna go using our moss color. It's super vibrant, super fun. And then we're gonna do some other color on top and do some distressing to see through this. So I'm using a really vibrant color because I wanna see it pop. So this color is a little bit vibrant, so it's not gonna have like incredible coverage, and that's totally fine. The second coat is gonna be like super awesome. I'm using a 1 series brush here. It's gonna give you a really nice smooth finish. Get over here. I'm gonna see a lot of distressing sort of in these areas, so that's kind of where I wanna concentrate this undercolor, but I'm definitely not gonna paint it everywhere, just in the areas where I want to see some distressing. So the legs are going to have a fair bit because it's commonly where you get a lot of wear and tear. So we're going to let this dry for probably 20 to 30 minutes, and then we'll come over and put some Beeswax Resist on it, and then go on with the sage color, which is such a pretty color. Our paint wash has dried now, and you'll notice because it's on bare porous wood, the grain is a little bit raised. Anytime you add water to wood, that can happen. So you're just gonna wanna take your sanding sponge, just a really, really fine grit, and do a couple of passes over it, and you'll immediately feel the softness and smoothness that happens. Then you're gonna dust it off, and we're gonna use our tough coat as our top coat to seal it all in. All right, so you wanna make sure you sand in the direction of the wood grain. Doesn't take a lot of effort, just a nice fine grit, and you'll wanna make sure you get all that dust off, and then we're gonna get started with our tough coat. Really, really important to make sure you don't have any dust on your surface before you apply your top coat, because if you do, you're gonna seal that dust in. And that's when it's not gonna feel very smooth either. All right, let's talk about top coats. This is our clear tough coat. It's a water-based product. It's really quite simple to use with a couple of tips. Really important, using our sponge applicator is the easiest way to get a nice, smooth, consistent finish with our top coat. What you wanna do is make sure that this is wet. So we're gonna take the mister, and I'm going to ensure that it's not dry, because if it's dry, it's really gonna pull and drag. I'm gonna work that in, but at the same time, I'm making sure there's no water left in it. So I'm gonna squeeze the water out, get any excess off. It's just so that the sponge itself is a little bit damp, but you don't want water coming out of it. Okay, great, so I'll set that here for a second. Now, you'll want to really roll around your top coat, because what happens is some of the matting agent can settle to the bottom. So if you just use the top, you might get a little glossy spot here and there. So make sure you roll it around. You don't really want to shake it because you're going to put bubbles into it, but it looks perfectly uniform. Fantastic. We do have this available in a gloss as well if you are looking for that as an option. Okay, so our water-based top coat, tough coat, phenomenal, easy to use. We're gonna grab the sponge. I like to pour it on a plate just to be able to grab exactly however much I need. Okay, dip, dip, dip. Let the applicator pad soak in a fair bit of it. So you've got it on there. And for our first application, we're just going for a nice light coat from one end to the other without stopping, very thin, and it's okay if it's not fully covered in the entire pass, because we're gonna do a second coat and that'll cover anything that was missed on the first pass. As I started to work with it and pull it along, it was almost grabbing the wood because the wood is so dry and so porous. If you had a painted surface, it would really glide across much, much easier. Here we go. Make sure you look at it from angles as well, just to make sure you haven't sort of left a big pile of tough coat in an area. So you may notice that I'm doing what I said not to do, which was to go back and forth over it, but when I take a look at the angle, and I see a little too much in one spot, because I literally just applied it and it's only been a few seconds, I can go back over it with my sponge before it's had a chance to start to dry. If you wait too long, then you're gonna have a problem if you try and do that. If this is your first time using Tough Coat, I definitely encourage you to experiment. We'll always give you some really great guidelines of what should work best, but you really need to feel it and learn how quickly it dries and learn how to manipulate it. If you are leaving some too much excess behind and it looks different, then you'll just know next time when you go to apply it, just to try and be a little more consistent in that area. And maybe you have to wipe that back a little bit. So play with it, practice makes perfect, and I'll let this dry, and then I'll come back and do another coat in about an hour. Just as we suggest with our paint, do thin coats when you're applying the Tough Coat. It's gonna allow for an easier application. You're not gonna have as many air bubbles or inconsistencies that way. So just keep it in mind. Really super thin with the sponge. You'll barely see it. It'll almost look like you took a wet rag and just wiped the surface. I wanna share with you one of my favorite tricks for getting beautiful, controlled distressing. In these areas here, I want to have a little bit of heavy distressing so I see this beautiful color shine through. I'm going to be putting my sage green over top, which is much more subtle. So for me to then go after the sage and sand it back to this color, if I didn't have this wax resist on, it'd be a little bit more difficult, and I might actually sand right through this color down to the wood. So by adding a little bit of wax resist, it allows me to have more control over top of my distressing. So I'm just gonna grab it, work it into my hands, and literally apply it. A nice little coating of it. You don't wanna see a thick coating on there, but it might look a little shiny in some areas, and that's all you need. And wherever I put this, that paint is really not gonna adhere very well to the surface. It's called a wax resist. You can use any beeswax that you have. So whether it's a furniture wax or a salad bowl finish, this one's our beeswax finish. It's also food safe, but I really like it because it's very oily, so it's definitely gonna have a really nice impact and resist. We have our moss color here, and I just applied the beeswax finish as a resist so that my sage color is not gonna adhere to the areas where I put that. I'm gonna have a really fun, punchy contrast of color. Now this color here is gorgeous. I love it. I'm gonna use my pointed sash brush. It's fully synthetic bristled. It's a Stallmeister brush. And you know it's fully synthetic because it has all of these green strings on it. Only the green string ones are fully synthetic. And it's a personal preference as to which type of brush you like to work with, but I love the pointed sash for getting into the corners and the areas and working around spindles. So there's a little dip. Now I should actually pour this into another container because I don't want to contaminate this container with the wax that's on here. If you go back and forth after brushing this and you get wax in your paint, that's not a good combination because wax and paint don't work well together. So I am gonna grab another container to work from, but for now, I'll just show you what it looks like to get a first coat on there. There's quite a lot of paint on the brush. I'm going to work it into the top first, go across, and then I'm going to come down to the areas where the wax is after. There we go. And you may notice almost right away, we'll see if we do or not, if the wax is resisting the paint right away, because it'll probably lace up a little bit and it won't look super fabulous there. All right. This is going to look really nice and rustic. So you can see right there, the paint is not sticking already. You can see it's sort of separating off of that oil finish. All right, just going to put a little bit of the paint in a cup here to work from, just to keep it from being contaminated. All right. Always close your container when you're not using it in case you knock it over while you're working. Definitely done that before. And this one I'm just gonna hold, so all good. Now I'm definitely going for more of a rustic look here, so I'm not being too careful. I'm getting some brush strokes and some texture. I like that because this is an old farmhouse table. all the edges are kind of worn, and you know, this is not supposed to look brand new. It's supposed to look like it's been painted many times. It's been sitting, you know, in the garage or something like that. Okay, so we'll let that dry, and then we'll come back, probably give it another second coat if we need to. Looks like I might not need to, and then we'll do some distressing. 2 coats of our sage is on and now dried. I'm gonna grab an ultra fine sanding sponge. Sorry, this is the sponge, this is the pad. This one's a little bit smoother. It's about a 220 grit. And then this one's got a little bit more tooth to it. I kind of like the sponges too, because you can really hold them and get a little bit more oomph when you're sanding. But we'll start off small in terms of the grit, and then if we need to work it up, we can. Now, anywhere that I put that Beeswax Resist, the paint should not adhere very well, so we should be getting some coming off pretty easily. This one's not enough, so I'm gonna go up a little bit. There we go, there we go. You can really see that green pop through there. All right, that's looking really nice. I'm gonna work over this side here. Don't want to go too much at once, just a little at a time to sort of see how it looks. I love it. You really see that pop come through, and it's such a vibrant color because I put that wax resist there. It's keeping that vibrancy. If I didn't have that resist, this top color would kind of blend in with that color, and you'd probably go right down to the wood really easily. So this helps to keep it really distinct. It's so simple. When you have that wax resist on there, you barely have to touch the surface for it to come off. I sanded a little bit too much. It went right down to the wood. So if I'm okay with seeing that wood color, that's fine. If I wasn't happy with it, I could actually just repaint over that section. So don't worry if you're ever painting and something happens. No need to freak out. You can always just add some more paint on top. Oh, look at that. Love that. That's great, eh? This is the part where you can really just distress and sand to your heart's content. It's all about how you like the look of the distressing. You can go super heavy and have a lot, or you can have just a little subtle amount. Totally your call. But play with it, experiment, and then take a step back every now and then, kind of look at it and see if you're happy with it, and just have fun and enjoy the process.